Morning folks, and welcome back. I'm finally back out here on the Norfolk Coastal Footpath. This has been a long time coming. I started this walk about a year ago, and then due to several reasons, I had a knee injury and a few other reasons, I haven't been able to get back out here until now. I've got 2 days. I've just left the port of Wells and I'm heading towards Cromer in an easterly direction. Hopefully I'll find a nice spot on the beach to camp tonight, and with any luck, make it to Cromer tomorrow. You can probably just about see Wells behind me, and I'm just walking across the marshes out towards Stiffkey or Stiffkey, which is the next village I come to. A lot of this area of the Norfolk coast is salt marsh, like you can see behind me here. Lots of little creeks, tidal creeks, loads of bird life, loads of wildlife, and really flat and open. Huge skies, absolutely beautiful. Now, although we're walking along the coastal footpath, we're actually quite a long way from the sea here. Well over a mile away. You might just be able to see it out there on the horizon. You can just see the sort of line of beach. And then obviously between there and here is this salt marsh, which is a bird reserve, but it's also treacherous to try and walk across. It's crisscrossed with tidal creeks, there's deep, thick mud, and it's just not advisable to try and walk across there except on designated paths. The coastline all up the east of England is, or was, heavily fortified during the war. There was a great fear that the German army would invade and East Anglia would be a point of access. And as a result, there were loads of fortifications built. Gun emplacements like this one, concrete defences, various structures built along beaches to stop tanks and landing craft and what have you. This place was really heavily defended, and the relics are still here to be seen today. I'm just going past the turn-off to Stiffkey here, or Stiffkey as it's known locally. If you need refreshments, there's a shop in Stiffkey, and there's the main road so you can catch the border hopper bus if you're starting or ending here. There are a couple of interesting facts about the village. The author Henry Williamson used to live here, who wrote Tark the Otter, and it was also home to a chap called Harold Davidson. Now, he was the priest here before World War I and just after World War I. He got a bit of a reputation for himself because he used to disappear off down to Soho in London during the week to save fallen women, whatever that means. I'm sure you can probably imagine. But anyway, there was an investigation and he was stripped of his priesthood. He then went off and became involved in stage shows, but came to a grisly end when he was mauled by a lion on stage live in front of an audience who thought it was part of the act. I've just got to the village of Morston, where there's a visitors centre and a place where you can get refreshments. This is one of the places where you can go on guided boat tours out to see the seals on Blakeney Point. I don't know how well you'll make this out on camera, but right out in the distance there's a tiny little house or cottage. I can see a chimney and a door and a window in it, and on the map it's just called a watch house. But how's that for the best spot to live in England? The nearest neighbours are right over there in Blakeney. Behind me is the popular and pretty village of Blakeney. Hard to imagine now, but it was once a bustling port up until the early 20th century when the harbour silted up, and it had a bit of a reputation for piracy back in the day. It's now a popular holiday spot and famous for Blakeney Point, which is a reserve and sanctuary. The stretch of path between Blakeney and Cley is much busier. Both are busy little hotspots really. Both have car parks and people tend to park at one end and walk to the other and back. So you'll find a lot more people on the path, walking dogs and things. I've just stopped for a bit of lunch. I've just taken a little path off the main path that led down to one of the creeks, and there's a lovely little sandy beach which I thought was ideal. So I'm just having some wraps I made up this morning before I left the house. My knee is holding up pretty well. I've not had any problems with my knee, but I've got a bit of pain on the top of my left foot, oddly. I don't know whether my boot was a bit tight or whether I pulled something, I don't know. I've just loosened off my boot a little bit and hopefully that will ease off this afternoon, but that's quite tender. Joys of getting old. This is the village of Cley, which once upon a time was one of the busiest ports in England before the harbour silted up. There is still some evidence dotted about from those days of trade with the Low Countries. There are some Dutch gabled buildings and what looks like perhaps an old wharf or something tucked away at the back there. The windmill really stands out amongst all the other buildings in Cley, and that used to be owned by the singer James Blunt, and it's now run as a non-profit making bed and breakfast. Well, this is where the salt marshes end and the beach begins. I'm at Cley Beach, and from here for the next several miles it's all shingle beach walking. It's tiring walking on shingle because it moves under your foot. I'm hoping that walking at low tide should be a bit easier because there's a bit of sand on the beach, so I can at least walk along compacted sand, which will be much better, I'm sure. But it's nice to be at the sea. Some more wartime defences here. I'm assuming some sort of anti-tank defence. I should imagine there was barbed wire and all sorts strewn through there. They look like big iron girders, all dug vertically into the ground. I've got to a point where I'm quite happy. I've got a little bit further than I intended to today, which is good. I've got a good chunk of this beach walk done and out of the way today, so there's less to do tomorrow. I'm not quite halfway on the beach, but I'm nearly. So I'm gonna just relax for a little bit. I'm gonna take my boot off because my foot's killing me. Loosening off the lace on that boot has helped, but I think the damage had already been done and my foot is really quite sore, so I'm quite keen to get this boot off. I've just done a really stupid thing. I was down by the water trying to get some film, and a wave has splashed my camera, my big camera, my DSLR, and it won't work. There's an error message that comes up and it won't film, it won't take any pictures, it won't do anything. It's just making a horrible noise. So I think I've broken it, which is a nightmare really. Film wise for this, I've got my GoPro, which I've been using on and off today, and I've got my phone, which is what I'm using now. The camera on the phone is really good, but the audio isn't when it's windy. I haven't got any sort of like wind deflector, wind muff or anything for it, so it's going to pick up all that wind noise, unfortunately. So apologies for that. I can't do much about it. The microphone I've got from my DSLR won't plug into my phone. There is going to be a deterioration, I'm afraid, in sound quality. I'm sheltering it from the wind now behind my rucksack, and I shall hopefully get my shelter up before too much longer. I didn't want to put it up while there were still people on the beach. There's a few people walking around still, walking dogs and whatnot, and I didn't want to go putting a shelter up because it looks a bit weird. Although there are people fishing and they've got shelters up, but yeah, I haven't got any fishing rods, so it looks a bit odd. So yeah, hopefully in an hour or so I'll be able to put my shelter up. I'm just hunkering down behind my rucksack at the moment, just trying to keep the wind off and stay a bit warmer. I've got my warm insulated coat on as well, which is helping. But yeah, that wind, although it's a southerly wind, it's not as cold as it has been. You know, when you sit in it for a while, you do start to chill. So, yeah. But it's absolutely beautiful. I've got an amazing view, and all is well, except for my camera. Set up for the night. I've got my tarp set up so that two edges are pegged out to the ground and then just up in one corner, and I put it
second walking pole just to open it up a little bit further back on the central guying point, and that's working all right. It's being blown about quite a bit by the wind, so hopefully it'll be okay. I've piled a load of stones up around the back edge there. There's a bit of a defence against the wind, but we'll just see how that goes. Yeah, I've got some water on for dinner. I've got a dehydrated Mountain House meal with me, so the first lot of water is going to go into that. That can be rehydrating while I make a hot drink. A nice texture, it hasn't got a lot of flavour. This is one of their more bland ones. But I have something that might just improve that a little bit. It just wouldn't be camp without a little bit of hot sauce. This one is called Queen of Peppers. Horrid. I think that's what it says. Yeah. Horrid. That doesn't sound good, does it? I'm going in. I'm not going to go too crazy, not like I did with my hot tent video, because I couldn't breathe then. That's better. It's going to be pretty nice to wake up to in the morning. So I thought you might like to see on the map where we've been today. I started off here at the harbour in Next-the-sea and walked all the way along here past the marshes. First stop was Stiffkey or Stiffkey, although we didn't actually go up to the village, we just went past. But there's quite a few things in Stiffkey. There's a pub, there's a campsite just on the outside here, just on the outskirts, near the path actually, where we walked past. And then we walked along. Next stop was Morston, and then we went on to Blakeney. Blakeney was one of the villages that used to have quite a sizable port years ago, before all the channels got silted up and large boats couldn't get down to the village anymore. And then we walked all the way up over the top here. That's where we got quite close to the sea again. And then we came back inland to Cley, and that's where the huge port used to be, one of the biggest in England. And the boats used to be able to get right the way up here to Weybourne. And the church there, although we didn't go there, the church in Weybourne is quite interesting, because the church wall at the back of the church has worn away sections in the wall where ropes used to hang over and wear away at the wall when large boats were tied up on the other side of the church wall. Well, you look over there now, and it's just a meadow with well, it's just grass. There's nothing there, but the sea used to be there. So yeah, it's amazing how much it has changed over the years. And then we walked up here on the other side of the channel, up to the beach. The last section was along the shingle all the way to here, just underneath this little hill called Cromer Hill.
Well, it's pushing 9 and I'm absolutely knackered. I've been reading my book since eating, which has been really nice. And just, yeah, sitting here, sounding the waves crashing on the shore. It's been nice. But I am starting to get quite cold. So I think I'm going to crawl into my sleeping bag and get some sleep. Now, I'm obviously camped on this beach at the moment. Beaches are a bit of a funny one, really. You're not supposed to camp on beaches, although you can be on a beach 24 hours a day. It's a weird sort of situation. You know, obviously people fish through the night on beaches, and they have a bivvy tent for protection, and they can be there, but you're not technically allowed to camp on a beach. And I just want to mention my last video on the Norfolk Coastal Path. I camped in the salt marshes near Burnham Deepdale, and likewise I didn't have permission to do that either. I don't advise anybody to wild camp without permission. You know, it is breaking the law. That is someone's land, and landowners aren't usually very happy about people camping on their land. You know, I do from time to time, but I'm very careful, and I make sure that I don't leave anything behind to indicate I've ever been there. You know, I wouldn't have a fire in a situation like that. I would just keep a very low profile, arrive late, leave off early in the morning, and don't leave a trace. You know, but my advice to you would be not to. There's a really good campsite in Burnham Deepdale as well, so you know there's actually no need whatsoever. You know, if you're going to do that leg, stay in the campsite where you can. Yeah, but, it's been nice spending the evening on the beach here.